What's wrong with this picture? From where you sit and from Mansour, what's the problem here?
Ain't no black people.
There's no black people. So how do we solve, what's the issue around it? Is it a innovation problem? Is it that we don't have a lot of smart people in the room that are solving complex problems? Or is it that we just don't understand how to engage into the ecosystem to attract those dollars?
Do I get more than one breath?
You can.
I mean, honestly, to me, the issue is we have to start building things ourselves. So the other problem with that list is that none of that stuff is started by people of color. So all of those events, all those things that are happening around the city, that are happening around the world, we need to be in the forefront of actually starting and activating those things so that we can be in charge and be in the leadership roles at those positions to be able to have more people of color to get that money. And so I think one thing that we need to stop doing is, I think Amari mentioned it earlier, we make all these excuses about, we don't have money, but it's a lot of freaking money in the black community. It's all these people in this room right now have some money, right? I mean, if you wouldn't be here, you got nice clothes on, and we have to start investing in ourselves, investing in each other, because what will happen then is we start building each other up, then those competitions and those investors and those others outside of the black community and minority community, they won't be able to deny us at that point. So we have to help build ourselves up, because in the other communities, they have family and friends around. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but they're able to build their companies up to a certain level before they join those programs, before they jump into that. And we might not have those same assets in our close circle. And so we have to work together to build up to that point. And right now, we're not doing it.
Right, so Troy, how are you activating this group here in Metro Atlanta with your platform?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's a lot of talk about we spend $1.3 trillion or whatever it is, and we should be able to leverage those things. So my team and I got together where you can, like I said, connect your debit and credit cards, and then every single place that you shop, you can either earn cash back or round up to the nearest dollar. So I think Black Panther's at 675 million domestically. We could have earned 4% cash back on that and created a $20 million fund,
That's amazing.
In a couple weeks.
That's amazing.
So our next step is over the next 2 to 3 months, we're onboarding about 10,000 retailers, and then when you go to Starbucks, y'all might not be going there no more, I don't know. But if you do, I ain't gonna shame you. But anyway, so whether you go to Starbucks, whether you shop at Target, Walmart, we can actually leverage those dollars and stop talking about it in a very seamless way. And then, like I said, if you're really about it, you can turn your spirit change into it too. To date, we've been able to do $130,000 something since mid-January towards various initiatives. And now we're just really focusing on us with the same technology, same thing. So that's it.
So Rodney, what is the family and friends investment environment like here in Atlanta?
It's incredibly nascent, almost, non-existent. And I mean, I'm not gonna call folks out, but most of you know some of the folks that are in this room that have been consistently writing checks here in Atlanta. And we have these conversations that, with the middle class that was created here because of policies in the 70s and the 80s that created a lot of amazing jobs for Black people and government contracting opportunities that benefited from those policies that, like Maynard Jackson took a chance on in building the airport. There's definitely the money here. Over the last probably 5 years, we've been able to, it's almost like we recruit one Black angel a year. And it's tragic, but you can do what you can do, right? And it's like every year there's a rich Black person that we convince that this is something that they should do. And through that mentorship, so they're probably on the stealth about 13 Black people in Atlanta who will write a check. And what we've discovered nationwide, just in having conversations with people, the average Negro, even with money, is good for about a $25,000 check. I don't care if he's a 100 millionaire, if he's got $50 million in government contracts, or he's got a nice life, she has a nice lifestyle business making about $250 to $300. That average check size is about $25K. So when you got to go raise a seed round, you got to talk to a lot of people, and that's a problem.
Great. So Tyler, your thoughts about the community as it relates to family and friends, the angel community, coming from Silicon Valley here to Atlanta. What are your thoughts? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add to that particular point. I would agree with Rodney about check sizes. I think you have to. Quite honestly, just kind of get out of Atlanta. If you're really serious about raising venture capital, which would include an angel investment or seed investment, you've got to get out of Atlanta, because the likelihood of one of those 13 people that he's mentioning, being someone who's going to write that check to you is just low. It's not for any particular person, just in general.
Tyler, let me interject here. So if you don't have access, like how do you get outside of Atlanta if you're already running on, like, you only got $5,000 in the bank? Who do we connect with in order to get outside of this ecosystem to get access to those dollars? How do we do that? Me? Yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe. But go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add some color to that friends and family round. According to city data, for white and Asian families, the median household income was in the $80,000 range. For black families, $29,000. So I don't know if anybody's ever lived off of $29,000, but that's barely enough money to take care of yourself, with a decent living, so much less friends and family. So along those lines, you definitely have to hunt for it.
Okay, Rodney, you seem like you had a thought?
Yeah, I mean, like, to your point, you can go to every tech conference on the planet, from South by to Collision to Launch. That's not going to disrupt pattern matching just because you get in a room. That's not going to make someone take a checkbook out and invest their post-tax money in you. There's no legislation that that today encourages people, per se, to invest their post-tax money, in black and brown founders. And I think we always have this outside conversation, but like, if 400 to 500 people are getting together every quarter, like, let's talk about the Invest Georgia exemption, which is crowdfunding in Georgia. Let's talk about the Jobs Act, Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act, passed by the President Obama in 2012, who off the record said that passing those changes in the securities laws that allow everyday people to invest in startups was the greatest piece of economic legislation since the emancipation of the slaves. And we don't even know it. So, like, if y'all told me every quarter 400 people are gonna come in this room and we're gonna put a company up here and everybody's gonna give out $250, and some people can write 500 or 1,000, and they leave there that night with $100,000, then they have a runway and they have traction to get to the programs and get to the conferences and get to the customers. And I think we can't keep playing the same games that white folks play.
Yes.
Right? And I'm saying that not as a segregationist construct, but when you look at his data and our data around the average median wealth of a black family, like, we shouldn't even be talking about families and friends and raising $25,000, $50,000 checks. We need to have economic systems where we can raise $200 checks and $500 checks. And there are founders in Atlanta who got their traction capital with equity crowdfunding. And so I think, like, raise your hand if you're a founder. Right, put your hand down. Raise your hand if you're an investor. That equation is upside down. Everybody in this room ought to be trying to figure out how to invest $100, $200, $500, $1,000, $2,500 check in one of your colleagues in this room on an annual basis, and that's how we get traction.
Great, thank you for that. Barry, I got a question for you. Good. So we've had conversations about activating our Atlanta celebrity community. Like, what are some of the challenges, some of the hurdles to get them engaged in this room to see these opportunities, because they might have dollars available to invest in these companies or in these individuals?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect segue from the previous question when we talk about not leaving our ecosystem. As a person, I mean, I spent probably $20,000 traveling the United States to raise money, and none of those people wrote me a check. That was $20,000 down the drain. And so what we do, as Rodney mentioned, we go chasing this other thing, right? This Silicon Valley thing. Every city in America is trying to replicate Silicon Valley. And if you look at how Silicon Valley was created by these 6 or 7 billionaire white dudes that then started investing in other people, typically white dudes, we don't have that same foundation. We don't have 7 billionaire black dudes or black women that just want to start writing checks, right? And so what we have to do is look at what we have. And Atlanta, I know it went around when Black Panther came out, but like, this is Wakanda. Like, our vibranium is our culture, our influence.
Yes.
And who is influencing the rest of the world?
Atlanta.
And so you look at our influencers that are here, and as Rodney mentioned, as millionaires and 50 millionaires and damn near billionaires, they still gonna give you $25,000. And so that's one of the issues, is that because they didn't make their money in the tech scene, we can't approach them with the same vernacular and the same methodologies that we would approach a white guy in Silicon Valley. Put a convertible note in front of him, he might rip it up and walk away. I don't know what the hell a convertible note is. And so I had many of them. I had 6 ball players invest in Masur, and those were really tough conversations. And so what we have to do is start looking at what type of methodologies fit our culture. What type of things can we do differently? Like, let's just scrap the entire Silicon Valley playbook and let's write an Atlanta playbook on how, I mean, just one of the ideas that I'm working on now with Infuse is every influencer, they may not want to write a check, but what they can maybe help you do is get some traction. But then what they do, if you talk about problems, is they say, I want 10, 15% of your company just because my name is whatever that influencer's name is. And so looking at creating some methodology where they can invest a small amount of money, and then they would actually have to vest the rest of that equity through their influencer. So if you need 500,000 users in your app, like, I'll give you give me $50,000, I'll give you 1%. But if you want that other 9%, you have to go work your ass off. Excuse my language, I cuss a lot. You got to go work your behind off in order to get that other 9% and start to use that vibranium we have as a culture to start pulling in black money from places like real estate, tycoons, I don't know how to say that word, I do math problems, vocabulary not my thing. Tycoons, you know, ball players, finance, all these places where black people make money, and start to funnel that into the wealth creating tech community.
Great. Anybody else want to add to that? Rodney, Tyler? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a comment necessarily to the point of athlete. Again, it's true. This is all true. Don't waste your time trying to raise money from athletes, entertainers. But the point I want to make, kind of in contrast to this conversation, is you know, and about how how can we be more self-sufficient? How can we create success in our own community? You know, I would say I personally think people spend far too much time thinking about how to start a startup and not thinking about how to start a business. I've had a lot of experience with startups, working in them, building them, funding them, watching them fail, watching them succeed occasionally, very rarely. Usually it doesn't work. And even for, you know, my friends who, you know, are kind of at the top of the startup game, they tell you too, it often doesn't work. It may not be working for them, even though it looks like it's working. You know, but all of us, especially in this city, can go out and start a business. There are lots of businesses to be started, to be bought, to be sold. Everything in this room, every person behind everything in this room is probably a decamillionaire. You know, the carpet, the stair, those lights, you name it. You know, this is part of why I sell hair now. You know, it's like, well, Tyler, why did you go from Silicon Valley, you know, building spy technology to selling hair? There's a reason for that. You know, and so, you know.
What type of hair are you selling? The women want to know.
Premium virgin.
All right, now sell it, man. You gotta sell, bro. This is
It's selling
people
stuff.
that can, yeah, you gotta sell this, man. Come on.
And,
Come on. What kind of hair?
but in all honesty, you know, if you take that point of view, that my intention here is not to start a startup or start a business, you begin to think about money a lot differently. You're like, okay, well, if I take this, $25,000, what does that mean? I have to give it back to them? Do I have to make, and it's a different mindset. And you will probably find that you actually need less money to start a business than you do to start a startup.
Absolutely.
And so, that's my kind of advice to you guys is forget all this startup crap. If it makes sense for you, then great, and I can certainly help you think about that. But you're much more likely to be successful starting a business than you are starting the next great technology company.
I like to add on. I think, I'm kind of looking back like 20-year hindsight, 10-year hindsight, and 5-year hindsight. I like to see some depth to our ecosystem that's built on building businesses that actually generate revenue. And I think
We understand that when you say depth. What qualify that for?
I think we get nascent entrepreneurship technical advice in terms of like we're learning the buzzwords, ideation, design thinking. Like we master the buzzwords and we don't get into the depth of what does it actually mean to go and try to meet with 100 people that you don't know to tell you actually if they will buy your product if you build it or your service if you sell it. We are skipping the hard work. And if you don't want to work hard, keep your day job. And I think we got a lot of people who see the sexiness of founders that are amplified, that don't have customers, that don't have product, but are able to get media representation, and they become the archetype of success first, and then we get the second archetype, which is capital raising, but we do what we're taught, we do what we think, so when I mean depth, I'm like, when you learn, how Mike Ross built his business, like his company, or the fact that this is a startup investor and founder that's played at the highest level, but he's now the CEO and operator of a product-based business that's selling hair extensions. That means when we come full circle, we go back to the basic roots of building a business and company that we can sell. If you're in this room and you're not selling to one of the companies in this city that have supplier diversity programs that are looking for minority suppliers, then you shouldn't be asking for a check or for money. Yes, you'll have the outliers. And if you're an outlier, we'll put you on the plane, we'll take you out to Silicon Valley, and we'll put you in front of all of his friends, and our friends. But we're not gonna build wealth with outliers. We need everybody in the room saying, can I build a $100,000 a year company? Can I build a $500,000 a year company? And then once I get that revenue, if I wanna go and do a product-based company, then I go do that. So just back to basics in terms of the depth.
Great. We got 3 minutes, and so I wanted to cover one point about ecosystem. What's our score as it relates to financial assets? Come on now, it's Jeopardy. 1.5. Lord have mercy.
I have a problem with that.
Wait a minute now. We gotta share the stage a little bit. So,
I know you're passionate. I got a problem with that number.
you got no problem with the number. So as it relates to the ecosystem, so what city is doing? Who's doing it the best, I guess, as it relates to investing in African Americans, Black people, and Black folks around the country? If we got a 1.5, who's doing it the best? Rodney, Tyler, Troy, and then Barry. One breath.
If you look at the last 5 years of data, checks accumulated by Black startups in Atlanta, if you can name one city that has raised nearly $200 million in the last 5 years, between storage is 30 million, patient tour is 33, patient tour is 7.2 million, my lumper 3 Sudu 2.3, Mansour 4, Jewel 2, The Gathering Spot 4, Pin Drop. I didn't hear Paul's name. Pin Drop has raised over $120 million. Luma has raised over $20 million.
So you're saying Atlanta is doing the best. What do you think, Tyler?
There's without question, it's the best. Without
Where we get this number from, Joe? They say we live. Okay. Well, Troy, what you saying? Well, okay, they both saying you're lying. Let's see what Troy and Barry got to say.
Joey, did you make this number up? Okay, all
I
right.
know why that number's bad.
He has the last word.
I don't know where the number came from. I think it was the same number last year, roughly. I think we're overly hard on ourselves. And I also recall, last year being up here, and I think it was just a few days or weeks before that storage had raised. They did an ICO technically, $33 million, and hardly anyone knew about it, And so, I'm just picking up a little bit of your theme here. It's like, it's hard to have this conversation and, put a 1.5 on the board when, we got a black founder from Morehouse that just raised $33 million like before, and nobody in the room knows about it.
It's like a media problem.
And by the way, there are quite a few black investors in that company, including myself. And so, I think this is unfair.
All right.
I do, by the way. I think as it's all relative. As a whole, we're all struggling, but Atlanta is the best.
We're welcome. What you think, Troy and Barry?
Yeah, I don't think there's a particular city, but I look at people. I'm sure a lot of people know Arlen and Backstage Capital, and I think it's just going to take more people like her. When we're getting less than 1%, of all venture capital, and when the sisters are getting less than 0.02%, raising $30-something thousand on average, I think it's instead of looking at the city, we just have to look at people who are being unapologetic about going and helping this ecosystem. Like Arlen, who says, I don't care how you feel about it, I'm investing in underrepresented, like blacks, LGBTQ, and everything else that she does. So,
all right, Barry, you got the last word.
I'm gonna take a little bit different approach to the answer to this question. Coming from an entrepreneur perspective, I think that number is completely accurate. One of the reasons I think it's accurate is because, take it back. It's accurate, but Atlanta is probably the best. It's still a horrible number though. So we, as a city, most of the money that has to be raised, you have to go outside the city, which limits the amount that can be raised within the city because it's very expensive to go raise money. When you do find someone that wants your idea, we got pitched to move to Silicon Valley once a month. I can't afford to go to Silicon Valley. I couldn't move a team of 10 people to Silicon Valley. And so I do think we need to get more investors in the city. And the other reason I think that we deserve this low score is because we can't compare ourselves to the other cities because we have the highest density population of black people, which means we should be that much better than every other city when it comes to investing in black companies. We have two of the most prestigious HBCUs right here in this city. We should be doing more. We should be better. We should be the best city. I think Kelly mentioned it earlier. We should be pioneering everything when it comes to black tech. We did it in black music, or I don't say black music, but Dre has something to say. South has something to say, but we took that over. We did it for black film. We did it for civil rights. We do it for politics. We do it for everything else. And we've, quite frankly, dropped the ball when it comes to black tech. The way that the rest of the other ecosystems will rise is that we have to rise our tide, and then all the ships will rise. And so we have to be that ecosystem that creates the map for everyone else to follow.
Great words, great words, great words. So we're going to open that's good. That's really good. That is for applause. So, really, really
just
good.
one